Hi, my name's Bill DeWees. I'm a voiceover professional, also a voiceover coach, and voiceover producer and director. And as you might assume, as a voiceover talent, a lot of the work that I do is commercial related. I do radio commercials, TV commercials. I do quite a bit of corporate narration, but the bulk of my work is e-learning narration. And coincidentally, I worked in the instructional design space prior to becoming a full-time voiceover talent 11 years ago. And prior to that, I was a college professor for 14 years. So in addition to having a passion for communicating compellingly and effectively, I have a passion for learning and for teaching and training and motivating others to learn. So when I get a chance to do an e-learning project, which is usually multiple times a day, I really enjoy that opportunity. And what I wanted to do in the few minutes of this video is to help you as a learning professional, as an instructional design professional, was to help empower you if you decide that you would like to do your own voiceovers, to help you be more effective in facilitating that learning experience. Or perhaps there's somebody in your office that does the voiceover for you. This will better enable you to direct and help that person give their best performance for the recording. Or if you're working with an outside professional like myself, it will better enable you to communicate and direct that talent if you should decide to do that. Now, many of you may already be sold on the idea of voiceover, and the purpose of this video is not to convince you to use it if you're not using it. However, I will just say this, that if you're not convinced that voiceover can play an important role in the learning process, I want you to think about watching a favorite movie, for instance. The content must be there. It has to be written effectively and compellingly. It's the story, much like in a movie. However, the media, the video and the audio, really helps to facilitate the story, to take it to another level, to allow it to penetrate the consciousness of the audience in a way that it never could otherwise. And I want you to think about this for just a moment as I talk about the few points that I have to share with you in being an effective voiceover talent within the context of instructional work and e-learning. That when you're watching a movie, you know that the actors in the movie are paid professionals. However, for that 90 to 120 minutes, reality is suspended temporarily as you're brought into the story. And for those few minutes, we tend to forget. I mean, we know, we're aware, consciously, cognitively, we know that they're paid professionals, but we suspend that for just those few minutes as we're drawn into the story. That's why we cry when our favorite characters are killed, or we cheer for the good guy or for our favorite character, because the communication, the way the story is told, the way the story is presented is compelling. Now, as a learning professional, you create the proper content. And nobody could argue that oftentimes in and of itself, it will do the job. But there are times when video and voiceover can help take it to the next level and to help better penetrate the consciousness of your audience. So again, if that is not where you're at, or you don't, that's something that you really don't buy into, then you may not enjoy the next few minutes of this. But if that's something that you want to learn to do more effectively, then that's what I want to do over these next couple of minutes. It all boils down to this. This is the one word to remember, and that is believability. By believability, again, we'll go back to the analogy of the movie. For those few minutes, your belief is suspended. And we know they're paid professionals, but for those few minutes, we believe that they are the character that they're portraying. Same thing with voiceover. Within e-learning, they may or may not know that you're a paid learning professional, or that I'm a paid professional talent. But for those few minutes, for that time that they're engaging with the content, we want that belief to be suspended, as they are compelled by not only the content, but by the way it's presented. And we all make judgments subconsciously all day long as to whether we believe messages or not. whether it's from our spouse, our kids, our family, the commercials that we hear on radio and television, our boss and our colleagues. And the way messages are communicated help us to make that determination very quickly and very subconsciously. So if you want to be an effective voiceover talent for your e-learning projects, to be believable, there are 3 things that you must key in on. And I use the acronym ACE, A-C-E. The first is authenticity. The biggest mistake that most people, with rare exception, because I coach hundreds of voiceover and aspiring voiceover talent, the biggest mistake that people make when they get behind the microphone is that as soon as they realize the mic is on and they are recording, they go into what I call performance mode. In other words, their objective is to sound professional. Sounding professional is not compelling. Being authentic is compelling. We've all heard the recorded messages from professionals that sound very smooth and very polished, and we tend to tune out those voices. It's the voices that sound, that make us believe that they have something to say. They're the ones who cause us to lean in to hear what they have to say. Think of it this way. Professional voices, people might, if you're a professional voice and you do a really good job, somebody may come up to you and say, hey, you've got a great voice. Have you ever thought of being a voiceover talent, a voice actor, or going to radio? But if you're a compelling communicator, they probably won't come up and say, hey, you have a great voice. Because really, whether you have a great voice or not is purely secondary or even tertiary. What they'll do, and they may not even say it, but what they'll do is they'll lean in. They will focus on you, or they'll focus on the sound of your voice, and they will be pulled into the message, to the story that you're sharing. So that's our goal, and that is to make you authentic. And actually, we don't have to make you authentic because there is an authentic you. So what you have to do is bring yourself to the script. And very briefly, what that means is you have to understand the context. What is going on? Who are you talking to? What's the role of the voiceover talent? Are you colleague? Are you supervisor? What is your expertise within the context of that script? Let me give you a for instance. I do a lot of medical and pharmaceutical related narration. When I am doing a script that's targeted to doctors, surgeons, typically the read will be done in a manner that is not promotional. In other words, typically these are people who they want the facts. They don't want to pitch. They don't care how excited I am. What they want to believe is that I know what I'm talking about. So authoritative. But it has to be me being authoritative, not my version of James Earl Jones or fill in the blank. You know, in voiceovers, we're always given names of actors as references. But the reality is my best impersonation of somebody else is never as good as me being me or as you being you. So if you're in the role as a narrator, as a medical professional, then you have to be the medical professional speaking to doctors as you would in real life. If your job is to train sales personnel, then there's probably going to be more of a promotional sense and more of a sense of excitement because we are motivating a population of people who are going to be going out and selling something. They need to understand it, yes, but they also need to be excited about what it can do for the client. And I could go on and on with examples, but you must know who you're talking to, what your role is, and what it is you're trying to accomplish. That way you can bring your authentic self to the script. Number 2, C, conviction. People follow people of conviction. And as a voiceover talent, and again, whether you're a professional talent or whether you're doing this as an instructional designer, you have to be convincing. You have to have conviction. That means people have to believe that you believe what you're talking about. And one of the simple ways to do that, and this is just a simple technique that you can use, is to keep your voice from going up into a higher register. Oftentimes in performance mode, we show our hand, so to speak, the fact that we really don't totally understand what we're talking about, or we're not sure of the context or the audience, or we're not totally confident. The muscles in your neck will tighten, and your voice will pitch up ever so slightly, and by doing that, we sound less confident and less knowledgeable. However, people who have a strong sense of belief and conviction of what they're talking about, their voice settles and relaxes into their chest, and they speak more directly. And they often end their sentences by inflecting down at the end. Because if you inflect up at the end, it subconsciously gives the message that you're not 100% confident in what you're talking about. So when you're more direct and you inflect down and you relax your voice, it lets them know that you are an authority on the topic that you're speaking of. But there has to be a sense of conviction, because if they believe you, they will follow you. And that is so important. And finally, E in ACE, we've covered authenticity, conviction, emotion. If you want people to act on your message, you have to get them to feel something. It may be a sense of excitement. Again, maybe like a sales training. It could be a sense of urgency. It could even be a sense of fear, maybe safety training in which you want people to really understand the consequences of poor behavior within their environment. It could be a number of things. But the only way to really get them to act is to get them to feel. And the only way to get them to feel, and you can't speak, you cannot speak professionally enough to get somebody to feel something. Here's the trick. And if there is a secret sauce of voiceover, it's this. You have to feel what you want your audience to feel. Let that sink in just a moment. You have to feel what you want your audience to feel. If you want them to feel a sense of anticipation, then you have to feel a sense of anticipation as you talk about perhaps the unveiling of a new program that will be introduced into the company. If you want them to understand the seriousness of the safety training, then you have to feel serious and concerned about what you're talking about. If this is an important message, then they have to feel that you feel that it's important. Because whatever you feel will directly, and this may sound touchy-feely, but I've done this long enough, and I've recorded thousands of projects. And those of us who do this for a living, we audition for our livelihood. So we're constantly competing. And the only way to compete effectively is to feel the emotion that you're trying to communicate. As an instructional design professional, as a learning professional, you must feel the message you're communicating. And believe me, these three things will go much further than sounding good. It's not about how well you enunciate, though you need to enunciate well. It's not how clearly you articulate, although you must articulate well enough to be understood. It's not even so much about speed and pacing. Not that those things aren't important, but they're very much secondary. What matters is that you bring yourself to that script within the context of what you're talking about. That you have a sense of belief in what you're talking about, even if you don't think about something that you do, so that the audience can feel that sense of belief. And then allow yourself to feel the emotion of what you're talking about, so that the audience will feel it. Because if you take them through that process, you will facilitate learning, because your content, which presumably is already great content, I'm sure that it is, will now penetrate further into their consciousness so that they can then act on that and be able to execute the learning that they absorb from your great communication and great content. I hope that you found this helpful, and I hope that you feel better equipped to record voiceovers, or maybe to direct others, or to assist those that are working with you in that capacity. And if you felt this is helpful, I hope you'll share it with colleagues and other learning professionals. And if you have any questions, comments, feel free to post them below, or you can drop me an email at voiceoverexpert@gmail.com.